combined with contemporary technology. He uses these combinations of skills and knowledge to further the traditional masonry practice in the repair, restoration, and reconstruction of dry-laid stone walls, platforms, and terraces across the ʻāina. So with that, please join me in welcoming our first speaker.
Aloha.
Hello.
Good evening. My name is Billy Fields. I'm a licensed masonry contractor in the state of Hawaii and also a culture practitioner. The perspective I bring tonight is I'm a builder. And in order for me to build our sites, we have to be licensed because we have to deal with regulatory agencies. All our men are covered under workman's comp, which is required by the state. We need to be also compliant, like pay the taxes and stuff. And we also lead a brigade of young Hawaiian men that we teach what we call Pōhaku. And what we teach is the art of dry stack. And through the ages we have learned how to construct these sites without the use of mortar that can last like for 300 or 400 years that our ancestors built. And one of the avenues that we have learned is all the walls that we see wherever you go throughout the islands, they are not plumb. Hawaiians use angles. We use a lot of angles in our walls, which the integrity of the mason and gravity keeps these walls in place. We also incorporate a lot of cultural protocols like asking a stone for permission to be used. We teach our men how to protect themselves, so you get visitors at night. And I got a couple pictures here that we'll run by. This here is some of the workshops that we've done, and as you can see here to the left, stone. Stones here were repatriated from the Bishop Museum. As you can see, they got some carvings in it. And what happened was, back in time, this kahuna waini used to carve footprints in these stones. One day she carved a pair of cowboy boots in this stone, and she went back and told the village, these are the footprints stoned her to death. That was 200 years before Captain Cook arrived. This is up on one. So we had the honor of taking them back, putting them on the platform. What we're looking at here is another site. This is up in Hālau Valley, Kūka'o, the Hālau Heritage Center. And like I said, if we don't take care of it, it's going to end up this, and then we're going to end up nothing. You're looking at it before and after. If anybody on the site, go up to the Hālau Heritage Center. They're a poster child of what a heiau and an organization should do. And we're all in it. I still work there. I was up there this afternoon. I live in Pōhaku, just restore it to local walls and teach. We cannot do it all. And the more we teach, the less work we gotta do. Okay, this is also on Hawaii, heiau, and this was a site of Makahiki grounds, and they were gonna level this place off and use it as a water runoff. And people are going to step up to the plate and make it happen. Any questions?
I think people probably have a lot of questions, and I would ask that you hold on to those until the end. But if I could just say, out of all of these sites that you've worked on, all of these different places and people, what are some of the key aspects of the project that you attempt to infuse or instill in each of these different activities?
Well, you know, we love the energy. We work our corner and we travel a lot, and you know, being on the road is not easy for the men, not easy for the family, not easy for my family. And but we love what we do. And like I said, the more we teach, the more that we can pass on. We like each island to take care of it all, which is the goal of our nonprofit, which is why we keep teaching. We're not going to stop up there. Each island has a core group that can handle this.
Thank you. It is my pleasure to now introduce Mauna, who was born in Mauna Kea. She attended Kapaemahu schools and the University of Hawaii at Mauna, where she began her activism journey. She is a founder of the Kulia na Mamo Transgender Health Project, a former Hawaiian language school at Healer Community College, and a candidate for the Office of Foreign Affairs, notably being one of the first transgender candidates for statewide political office in the U.S. She also served as the chair of the Oahu Island Area Council and was cultural director of Hālau Public Charter School. She is a recipient of the National Education Association Ellison Onizuka Human and Civil Rights Award, Native Hawaiian Community Educator of the Year, and a White House Champion of Change. In 2020, Kumukina directed, produced, and narrated Kapaemahu, an animated short film based on the Hawaiian story of four legendary Mahu who brought the healing arts from Tahiti to Hawaii. With that, please join me in welcoming Kumukina.
Ano ito ay kapopawo di alam ng pagkalang ni tigahinay. Kung mahawa ang hindi, mahawa ni kepemuliaan, may kaya ito muna iyan mo Pōhaku, tawalan mo yung wahi. Mahalo for this opportunity, and it is an honor to spend time with all of you. If you might direct my sharing, the question to start us off this evening, for me,
Excellent. So we have an exhibition here at Bishop Museum that features Kapaemahu, the film that Umina directed and narrated. And I guess the question that I would ask is, how do you connect Pōhaku to monument?
Our Pōhaku here in Hawaii are our connection to our ancestral past, to our cultural understandings, and they serve such a broad range of function that to not understand Pōhaku is to not understand how our people see. When I say our people, I'm talking about my people, the Kanaka of these islands. And how my people see Pōhaku. Pōhaku are as essential as every other living thing around us. So when you think about one of the many plants, for example, that Kanaka would use, you have the neem, you have the coconut. It's one of the most vital plants that one can find here in Hawaii and throughout the Mauna Kea. Pōhaku are no different. Our Pōhaku serve to be the pai, is the foundation, is the kahua. Our Pōhaku serve to build the paia. Our Pōhaku serve to honor and uplift. Our Pōhaku serve to establish and create space. Space and time is essential to our understanding of what then constitutes as, for example, you asked me the question of a monument. Some people will come to Hawaii and see the great things that have been done by legendary figures in our community, like in the fields. You might see the before. You might see our stone walls, our terraces, our former heiau, and you might see them in disrepair and some in ruin. And those eyes fall upon these places and say, it's just a pile of rocks. But Kanaka know how to look at this and say, likely it was one of these things here. When they get restored by someone like the fields, and when you see the final product and the effort to reinstate them to their rightful dignity, I'm doing my best to choose these words very carefully. Reinstate our stones, their usage, their positioning, and how they set the stage for us, Kanaka, to do several things. One of the most important, which I will now connect us to Kapaemahu, is to connect us to our ancestors. Kapaemahu, na Pōhaku kahuna, o Kapaemahu. These stones I acknowledge as a monument. Because these stones, the context of these stones is that they come from Kapūkakī. They come from far away. They weren't just lying strewn about in the area that they're located now. They were brought from a long, great distance away. This is prior to the time of easy transportation of the stones. This would have taken a considerable effort. Why would Hawaiians go through such great lengths to do this? Not only to honor these legendary healers for that which they gifted to people here on Oahu and perhaps throughout the rest of the ʻāina, depending on where their canoe may have landed. But then to serve as a doorway. Some people might even use the word that is often associated with a level of mysticism that sometimes turn the Hawaiians away, and we go, oh, where's that word again? Shamanism, mysticism. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the understanding that I and others that we maintain when we say we walk with our ancestors. We know that those of us sitting up here, we are the keiki of our parents. We're the child of our parents. We are the moʻopuna of our grandparents. And we are the moʻopuna of generations who have gone before us. Just because we may not know all their names, just because we may not have ever met them during their lifetimes, does not mean that we are without them, and it does not mean that we do not acknowledge them and that we do not connect with them. This particular monument that is the Stones of Kapaemahu, I look at them as a testament to what great things these four healers must have done to have the people labor. There can be no greater gift in our island culture than to labor, and it is no different than the labor given to make this leg that I am wearing. Somebody took the time to select the flower, to string the flower, and to create something of beauty that was going to be used to uplift and honor the recipient of this leg. Its fragrance reminds me tonight of many other moments of great things that have come my way, but also of sad things, of moments of rites of passage, moments of someone passing, moments of someone getting a year older. These stones are a great physical testament to the arrival, the coming, and the great works of these people. So, these stones do not have to be physically manipulated in the way that Americans went and, well, new Americans, not the Native Americans, newcomer Americans went and carved. What is that? Rushmore. I'm sorry, you can talk. Hawaii is my mainland. I focus on over here. I'm not really concerned with too much about what's going on in America. So it's in South Dakota. Okay. Well, so that's physically manipulated. So in order to pay honor to them, they were carved. Their images were carved. But these stones, in our way, in a Kanaka way, we come from oral history and oral tradition. From the waha, the lehele of the orator, to the heiau of the one who will receive it. But it is through our na'au and our understanding of our connection to everything in life that we have the desire to keep repeating the story. So these stones, while somebody else might come along and say, it's just 4 stones. But these 4 stones were honored, prayers were uttered in their presence, and these prayers lasted for the fumo in the time that they were being instated as a place of honor. So for me, when I say portal, I mean that I know I can go there, and if I know how to communicate in the way that the healers themselves had communicated, that I might be able to access this. Does this mean that others cannot? Not necessarily, but it means that when we go, the best way to go and approach some place which this is being called a monument, yeah, we refer to monument. The best way is to go in a way that is customary with the ways and the people of the land, because that is how it was put to this responsibility. These stones were charged with this task, this kulea, of remaining as a vestige. I believe is the word vestige. Vestige, right? That's the word. That these stones are. I'm really sitting up here with a Hawaiian audience, then I help you with this English word. How do I say it? Again, the point I'm trying to make is what foreign eyes might just view is just a bunch of rocks. But when Hawaiians see it, and when we see certain things arranged in certain ways, when we see them how they are put together, when we see the angles, when we see their positioning, we know that they must serve very specific purposes. So, the monument of Kapaemahu, which I hope that you might have a chance to visit our exhibit before it gets taken down, I believe on the 16th, this month. The exhibit will live on elsewhere, I believe down at the convention center, parts of the exhibit will live on. You can visit kapaemahu.com to see the 1-hour documentary film that we made, or you could visit. I would ask, however, that whether it be Pōhaku Kapaemahu or other places like the heiau that are restored, and other places that my other colleagues will be speaking about, if you are not familiar with the way that we go about, the best way to approach monuments like this is go with humble heart, go with open mind. Your thoughts and your words uttered in this way, like I'm speaking to you, words uttered in the form of a song or a chant. That's truly the best way, because these things get to echo here in our physical space, and they echo into the beyond. If you're not a subscriber of that, then you'll simply go and pose and take a photo, and they say, that was a nice set of rocks, and then you'll move on. But for those of us who understand the significance of things like the monument of Kapaemahu, we know that sometimes to best honor and uplift is to do little to physically impact their presence. So I advocate for people to not go and take all kind of lei and do all kind of things. Please don't leave things over there, because then it puts the responsibility on those who come to Malama or to take care of the place to have to pick up after you once your offering has been left and done. I leave you with this, especially for a spiritual monument, the true test of your relationship and your ability to connect to the reason why it became a monument is going to be found within. It's not going to be found externally. It's going to be found internally. And it's going to be up to your ability to stand there in your silence, and to stand there in a time of reflection, and to stand there with the integrity of your heart, your mind, in alignment with the spirit that you come with, and the intentions that you bring. It is in that way that you can connect to the mana of places and spaces. Thank you. Sorry, it's not allowing me to do that.
That was perfect, thank you. That connected so clearly, I think, and perfectly to the things that Uncle Billy introduced, and I think we might talk about in the Q&A a little bit more. And what I think Meha is going to be sharing with us too, in terms of space and reclamation. So with that, I would like to introduce Meha, who is a hula and cultural practitioner skilled in hula and moli. She descends from the hula lineage of Hula Lea Ala Kalamahai and earned the rank of she completed the Uniki rite set forth by her kumu. She has been trained with Nane Oli from some of Hawaii's master chanters. Mehana brings a breadth and depth of relationships with Native Hawaiian communities, leaders, schools, and organizations that is hard to match. And she has committed her life to teaching the Lahui to chant and hula, the wisdom of their ancestors. Please join me in welcoming David.
One of the most embarrassing parts for all of us is when people read our Bibles. It was just like, oh my goodness, what are you talking about? Yeah. But mahalo to Bishop Zoom and all the staff here for inviting us here, and mahalo to Billy and Hina for setting the Pōhaku now, from which you can jump off of. You know, one of the things Hina kept repeating over and over was this idea that people would see this as, okay, those are just a bunch of rocks, right? And one of the things that's clear to me on why it's not just a bunch of rocks, right? Because it's in the moʻolelo. It's in the moʻolelo spaces that travel down in the moʻolelo of people. The names do too. The names of those places show up. I'm a hula person. We just happen to be the best people on earth, by the way. I'm slightly biased. But if you're not a hula person, go join a hall. Yeah. But one of the things, the first thing we usually do when we have a cultural question or a challenge in front of us or something that we want to get better at is we go to the chants. So we go straight to the chants. And the chants usually that are within different moʻolelo, people will read the stories. When they get to the part of the chant, they skip over the chant, and then they continue on with the narrative and the story, right? Because the chants can be archaic, right? They can be, like we don't understand how it's laid out, or how to actually interpret or read these chants. But we go straight to the chant, right? And from there we pull back. Pull out of it the lessons, all the hot vina that's in it. And one of the first wahi pana stone kind of action I want to talk about is Kapūkakī, right? And Kapūkakī and heiau. If you guys have ever been to Kapūkakī on the island of Hawaii, right? If you haven't, go. Well, I don't even know. Actually, I don't know post eruptions if you can. I don't know if the world is open down there and stuff. But I remember one of my kumus, we were studying for a period of time, and studying meaning we would go look up all the chants, we would go and visit the spaces that the chants were talking about, we would ask the question to ourselves, why is this knowledge that we have about these Pōhaku, about these spaces important to us today, right? That's really important for us to make sense of the value of those spaces, right? We have and we can still say it's valuable without me trying to make anything more about it. Yes, we can. But for people who want to continue a particular practice, we have to go a step further and ask a little bit more questions about what value does knowing which Pōhaku, when we get down to the easternmost point of Hawaii, right, that is made famous in our mele, right? What is the importance and significance of knowing that stone, Kapūkakī? It's stones that are around it. Yeah, heiau is one of them. Where it is, why it is. Why was it important to our ancestors, and why is it still important for us today? Right? So Kapūkakī is one of them that stands out. I never know about Kapūkakī. I knew about it in song only, in mele only, for years. Since I was a child, we hear references to it, right? But to go there, to see it, to understand better perspectives on time, on weather, on observances of celestial occurrences and phenomena, and how even in our digital world, we're always one electric outage away from knowing absolutely nothing. Where the simple knowledge, like those simple rocks over there, can make the difference between life and death. Which it did to our people, which it does to our people, right? So to keep that, to keep those knowledge threads still alive, and to go to those spaces, to do those chants that we do on stages in marijuana, do them at the sites that they are memorializing in a way, is just as important to complete that kind of circle of knowing and understanding. Yeah, go make. Not just read Emerson's go, first of all, get the other books, but then also go to the spaces. Yeah. So one of the wahi pana that I think that we overlook, or a lot of us have not paid attention to over these years, that are so proud of it, we go, oh my God, yes, it's all these men. Anytime we talk about the beginnings of something, we reference Hawaii and heiau. Right? Anytime we talk about the beginning of life, about the beginning of us doing anything, right? We reference these points and never, or sometimes maybe never get a chance to go to the physical space and see why it is that we do that. Why is it so important to do that? Right? So since we're on Hawaii Island, let's stay a little bit on Hawaii Island, right? So there's Kapūkakī there, and then there's Pōhaku in the southern end, and the Pomohana end of the island in Kona, right? Really pili to Kalakawa's family, right? They're very much Sun people. I don't know how to explain it. They're Sun. The sun and the sky. And so that cycle, those cycles of time and keeping time, were very important to them. So Pōhaku is actually a spot on the southern end of Hawaii Island, where it's known, that's where, if you can say just on that island where the sun rises and when the sun sets, you use those demarcations, right? We use today, right, Haʻi and Lehua, the island of Lehua, just off of heiau as our reference points for sunrise and sunsets. But there's a pool over there, right? That is used as that demarcation. That is a known burial ground for that mahana. They decided to put their kupuna in that place where the sun sets. Connect that now to like our ceremonies and rituals when we do work with kupuna. We often acknowledge that element of the setting sun as the space where our ancestors are and go, and that akua ku that regulates that end of our life cycles, right, goes with that setting sun. Right, so you just get started. I don't know. I'm making all kinds of connections in my head, right? Like the mind maps, right? They just they all connect, but they look hella crazy. If somebody else is watching that, right? But to me, it's a perfect connection, right? So that's on Hawaii Island. Stones also are in Kona, right? One of the most fascinating things that I've seen on that island was actually the kua'iwis. The kua'iwi going up Hualalai. The kua'iwis are the stone walls up on Hualalai that and just amazing, because we know Kona, we think this is people from other islands that know water over there. That Kona hot, everyone know hot. No water. Actually, the mountain get all the water, right? So you just cannot see the water. There's not too much rivers and streams like in Kona that you can see, but no need, because the plant and the growth that come from over there comes from underneath, right? They have all these subterranean dike systems that feed into the water. But the kua'iwis were these stone like malas, like they were built around, and they just go up for miles and miles and miles. And you see walls, sometimes like this big, sometimes a little higher, but they are, and then they go into like perfect squares where different crops were grown in each of those. Amazing systems, food system, designed all around these rock formations up there. And the first thing I thought is, why would they go through all the trouble of stacking all this rock going up this mountain when I think could have been okay if they just grew stuff over there and never actually make the rock walls around them? But then I learned the Pana people, you guys just love building rock walls, yeah? You go Pana, get rock walls everywhere. Everywhere. Every house, all houses get rock walls and holes inside the house. It's just spoil the people on that, right? So that's a fascinating thing, right? And it's a known thing, the kuaʻiwi, the back, like bones that's going all up, if you ever get a chance to see that. Yeah, it amazed me. Now we come down to where Billy then did a huge restoration project with Hawaii and Ke'eku. Now, I was part of a group at the time before it was built, having these gatherings with community about them, about Hawaii and Ke'eku, and about the hotel that was sitting right there. It used to be, it's not there anymore, but the hotel that was sitting right there. And the pāhale for Pōhaku that was just up on shore from where these heiau are. And why? Why the importance of this? Are we going to kill anybody and put them in Ke'eku? Now, I'm not trying to point at any of you guys on this side of the audience. Just that if I face the ocean, Ke'eku is on this side and Hawaii is on this side. So please don't think I'm doing that. But so Ke'eku, like, are we going to do that? Is that what we're trying to do? Right? Is that what we're trying to revitalize when we go through our process of thinking of restoring these sites? No, it's important, but to connect the physical sites, especially the Pōhaku ones are so, they're prominent in our historical context, but we're seeing more and more today. The current purposes, and even back in the day, the purpose of a particular space, right, in our practices have, maybe it's not the best English word, you guys can maybe give me a better English word, even though we're not doing too good with the English words up there. But yeah, vestige. Yeah. We're going to all go home to look up that word. Yeah? Is the purposes for those spaces have sometimes flipped. They morph, they accommodate they do two things. One, they help the Kanaka stay focused, but they also aid in the transitions that Kanaka have gone through. Right? And we see this. We see this, not particularly like this particular example, but it's very prominent, like in Hana, where they have old, like heiau, right? And of course, where the heiau used to be, get one Christian church. Like right on top of them. Not only in Hana, that's my most visual one. But that was a common occurrence, right? That the purpose, they know, it's known, not only about Hawaiians, Christians too knew that spot was manafo. Right? Whether it was in their minds to crush or oppress the particular activities that were previously happening there, or whether there was some kind of enlightenment knowing that the world is made up of spaces that give and provide the energy necessary for connections to occur, right? So we have these examples of that, right? So it's super important, the work that Billy folks did over there. Now, if we jump islands, since I just moved to Maui, yeah, and we went from Hana, and in Hana, one of the most, besides Pukohola on Hawaii Island, right? Oh, I'll come back to Pukohola. Besides Pukohola, Pilani Heiau on Maui, right, was the first place, personally, I experienced what it was to be in ceremony. This is my alarm.
Don't sound, keep going, keep going.
See, I set my alarm. I told her I gotta set my alarm because I will go forever. Okay, I'm gonna make this fast so we can get to the time. So Pilani Heiau, amazing structure, still there today, right? First place I ever experienced what the environment is like when you're in ceremony. And to say this, it was like being in a bubble. The sound that was going on out away from the heiau, the crash, because it's right on the ocean front, the ocean crashing, the waves, which we just heard right before this, silenced. The wind that was blowing all the trees before that, and are still blowing the trees just outside this bubble, everything within it was still. Everything. Even we became still. Our sounds. Anyway, just an amazing phenomenon. Pōhaku on Hawaii Island, one of the spaces, and so kind of lead into who I was talking about the reclamation of spaces and then their actual use again. I think Marcus is still in here. There's some people who are, Marcus Maizan and our kumu, his kumu, and who was my kumu at one time too, Papa Kiola Lake, and a group of people purposefully revitalized that space in order to reintroduce to the Kanaka body, into our bodies, the rituals, right? And I phrase it that way because it's like that. Our bodies, our minds, are now, everything had to get in alignment again with just going through those motions. So was it perfect? Were they doing everything like, totally perfect? It was our body had to gain back that muscle memory. We had to discover over time, and I'm saying we as if I was there. I wasn't there, but the collective we, that kind of revitalization is important to. We have to ask ourselves the questions as we're moving through the revitalizing of rituals or the creation of new ones to face the challenges that we have today. Pōhakus and spaces that Pōhakus provide allow us that connection to be able to do that. So if we just jump, just two more wahi pana types of Pōhaku stuff. I'm gonna skip all the rest. I had like 20 minutes more at least of stuff, but I'm gonna cut it down. Is the birthing stones, right? Which are usually overlooked in these because when we talk about Pōhakus, we say, oh, but actually Kapaemahu is an example of the healing stones, but we usually stick to the big ones, the heiaus, or the big ones, the Mauna, right? So the birthing stones here on Oahu at Kukaniloko and on Kauai, right, at Ho'olomapahu, are spaces which were dedicated, utilized for the practice of birthing high-ranking chiefs in particular, with that action of birthing. And then another, and this will be my last one, like wahi pana that's been created more so now to be as part of our landscape, I want to say, is the work that's being done around Iwi Kupuna. Right? I've seen ancient, and meaning we didn't do it, we didn't build these burial tombs in our time, I've seen them, I've seen the older ones right before. I know of where we placed for their, into the pool our ancestors. And the work that has been done nowadays in our reclamation of that practice of being able to, and actually it's a reclamation, but it's also a creation of practice, because we're in the habit of stealing thousands of ancestors and just putting them in boxes or shooing them about or chopping them up and mixing them in with the concrete. Like, that wasn't our practice, right? So in the time that we are in, and the work that both Puimama and Puiʻiʻi and also Billy them have been doing, super instrumental. And you'll see these burial tombs now more and more in spaces that we traverse. There was a time period, and there are some that you will never see. You will never know. You'll walk right past it and never know it was there, right? And maika ikela, right? And there's a value and purpose and room for all those types of representations of how our people are returned back to the pool. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop right here.
Thank you. I think a lot of the things you mentioned connected to the two previous speakers, and that reclamation of space, but also the activation of space, through a collective kuleana is something that I think we're going to be hearing about from Kalekua. So thank you for that. And I'd like to introduce to you now Kalekua Krug, who is probably from the Wahi coast on the island of Oahu. He has worked as a Kaiapuni immersion teacher, a Hawaiian language teacher. I mean, you notice that a lot of the people up here are teachers. I think that's one of the through lines that I've been, is the need to educate and that knowledge transference that is such an emphasis for all of you. And thank you. Kalekua is a Hawaiian language teacher and educator at the University of Hawaii on Manoa, and then became the administrator of the Hawaiian Language Immersion Program of the Department of Education in 2014. In 2019, Kalekua became the principal of Hawaii Kana'awau Public Charter School. He studies Hawaiian language, philosophy, and worldview, and is a practitioner of Kapūkakī, traditional Hawaiian text week, and is also a Hawaiian musician. Please join me in welcoming and
na oiwi o kila kihi kia kihi o ka honu. Me ka paipai kapu o umi, ai ka paipai kapu o limo, aloha nui kako. Ke waiwa e ni no ko umelila, me ka mahalo ku ia o ko i kia ku ana i mo o ko, a me nai, a me nga mea nani o no e au o Hawaii o koa, e paa i o ka hale ni, aloha o kuapa. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a poem. So it may not look like it's more for me. I use poetry to help me process, and it helps me think. And it's really going to be a way for me to set my Pōhaku niho, the cornerstones of what I'm going to speak on. And I'll try and keep it brief and concise, and if it's not clear, ask me questions. And so part of where the contemporary space of my own life is that I'm kind of entrenched in the struggle to drain the fuel tanks at Kapūkakī, Red Hill, and in that space there's a lot to deal with. There's a lot of trauma that takes place as trauma took place on Mauna Kea and for the last couple of 100 years. And so I'll start off with a poem called Kawaii o Kawaii, the value of water. Is water's value man-made, or is there something more? Is it all the money we've paid, or something we now ignore? We've moved so far from where we began, it's like it never occurred. Stories untold of forgotten lands, historic vision all a blur. The things we've loved immemorial, stripped from childhood's gaze. Lessons abducted before we get too old and see our true identity is abased. Because of this, we let things go. The water will be okay. Just close your eyes and let life flow. No need for any conflict today. But that in itself is an enemy, implanted so long ago. Newly cultured eyes so we won't see the life that we used to know. Is there true value? It's there, true value grew and grew for the earth and all its beauty. Recalling something that we all knew, alongside humanity's true duty. Our spirit knows from generations past, there is something really wrong. Humanity, please, we will not last. We've been hurting for way too long. The earth is our mother from which we were born. She's not something to harm. As children from our parent torn, why aren't we sounding an alarm? Dig deep inside and we will feel the wahi of Hawaii. The final trauma that we must heal, stop the internal lie. And utilizing poetry in that manner allows space to discuss ideological differences. Because I believe that as we talk about stones, as we talk about land, as we talk about ourselves, as we talk about trees, all of that is one thing. That's all unified. There's no separation between them, which is because everybody said in the hierarchy of logic that's coming through this panel right now, starting with Hālau, that you can't leave the heiau desecrated. Like you cannot leave a child's spirit torn. You have to rebuild it. You have to rebuild it. And then when you speak about the ideas of acknowledging importance, we have to understand the ideological differences of how our eyes see things and acknowledge them. Because I'll share that seeing a pile of rocks versus seeing something special, important, is ideological. The framework for that importance is built into the chants and the moʻolelo, the genealogical chants, because rocks are family. And it's not really complex. And maybe we can say that it's primitive. Maybe we can say that it's childlike. However, if you study child psychology, if you understand children come from a much cleaner place than us as adults do. And when you ask them, should we build a strip mall over the home of our? The child will say, no, why would you do that? Because they can see that I don't want something built over my home. So this is not complex. And so what it comes for myself, where it comes through is that stones, Pōhaku, land, are all our ancestors. And in that lies what hopefully the message that I shared tonight is that, anybody heard of the word anthropomorphism? You know what that is? So indigenous animism is, and I really apologize because sometimes when you over-intellectualize indigeneity, it seems disingenuous or it does a disservice to the true essence of that worldview. However, what anthropomorphism does psychologically to a collective is that it centers our focus on everything being interconnected. When you can put your grandfather's spirit into a rock, and then that rock takes his place or becomes human-like, you care for that rock like you care for your grandfather. And when you care for the land like you care for your grandfather, we survive. we thrive. We treat the land in a way that allows us in perpetuity to never, ever, ever run out of resources. To never, ever, ever run out of the things that we need to survive. And in doing that, and caring for the land in that way, and making the birds our ancestors, and the trees our ancestors, and the fish our ancestors, my family, I'm going to look at the reef and I'll see my grandmother's face. I'm going to see Mauna Kea and I'll see and remember my family. Yes, it's simple. However, I'm going to share with you folks that through anthropomorphism, psychologically, when you learn that at a young age, your life is different for the rest of your life. When you don't learn about anthropomorphism, when you think that the land ideologically is yours to dominate, to control, and stories tell us that that's what's right. I'm not going to get too deep on that road. But there's a story that teaches us that the land is ours, possessive. That we can own it, we can rule it, all the resources are ours, and the story teaches us that. There are other stories in the world. And Hawaiians have our stories, and our stories have built-in characters that are heiau, and characters that are thunderclouds, and characters that are sharks. And we can talk to them, and we can nurture them, and we can love them as they take care of us, because we're all interconnected. And so, ideologically speaking, anthropomorphism builds a different human being. And we don't do that anymore. So it could just be that simple. But we don't do that anymore. And in not doing that anymore, we cannot see Mauna Kea as our grandmother. Because if all of us saw Mauna Kea as our grandmother, there would be no telescopes on the top of the mountain. If that makes sense. And I'm trying to sit over, I'm trying to make it clear. So, as we walk through our journey for advocacy, for organization, there's, and I'll get to that right at the end. But I want to give folks, ideologically speaking, that these stories are all of ours. And I know some people push back on me, like, no, that's Hawaiian story. I'm going to say, the reason why when you come to Hawaii, you should probably, or when in Rome, after do as the Romans do. When you come to Hawaii, do as the Hawaiians do, because the land taught the representatives of our species that stood here for thousands of years, and I see them like that a culture that those human beings derived here is a direct result of this land. And when you come to this land as a member of our species, if you honor elders, if age and experience is something that is important to you, that the knowledge that comes from a culture is thousands of years old, from elders. That's why you study history. That's why you take care of your grandparents. That's why it's built into a culture to do that, because if you love grandma, then you love grandma's stories, and you love grandma's knowledge, and then all the things that she believes in. When we separate, and we say, I hate my mom, I hate can I listen to my grandfather? We gotta progress. When you have that ideological belief, you do not really honor experience and longitudinal data. I don't say, don't call it like that. I'm gonna call this out. Because the kupuna of this land, I'm going to call them the researchers, researched this land for thousands of years, and they ran a longitudinal study, and the derivative of that data is called the Hawaiian culture. And that Hawaiian culture is the way, I'm telling you, is the way for everything to thrive here. Getting to advocacy. I'll stop there and ask a question. Is that when we organize as a people, we're not organizing to protest. We're not organizing because the Constitution gives us that right. We're organizing to protect our grandmother. The water is Kane. Kane is Akua. Many of us are descendants of Kane. Kane is in our genealogical line, just like my grandfather is. Now, if you really believe that Kane is your grandfather, you're not protesting. You're defending. You're protecting. You're caring. You're loving. This is ideological. And so all the things that we've shared here, for me, if I can wrap it up, is about advocacy. That we have to know the stories of these stones. Not just because we're going to go to the stones and pray to them and we want to, it's not just about those stones. It's about the ideology of honoring and anthropomorphizing something in our natural world. And I want to be clear is that why we deify the natural world is because when we deify the natural world, we care for it differently than we do now. Hope that makes sense. And so when we advocate, when we organize around the idea of grandma's in trouble. And I hope all of you would do that for your grandparents. When Kane is in trouble, Kane is Tutuna. When Mauna Kea is in trouble, it's Tutule. And that's all we're doing. That's the terminology, the difference between protector and protester. And it's disrespectful to see it any other way. Because the discrepancy is going to be ideological. And so that's what we organize around. Wow, no question.
Thank you. We do have people online as well. Okay, so we might be taking questions from folks who are online, but let's start with questions from those of you here in the audience tonight. Question?
While people are thinking of their questions. While you're thinking of the questions you want to ask, I just wanted to invite everyone. I'm with a small group of women who do ceremony at the stones at Pōhaku in Waikiki on every Friday at 5 o'clock. We gather and 5:15 we do ceremony, and it's because we do. One of our members was brought there and she didn't know anything about the stones. She didn't know anything about the story. She hadn't seen the documentary in the museum. Didn't know anything, but she got a message that the stones needed us to share our love and our light with them. Stones to reactivate the mana that's in them, the healing power that was put in them by the Mahu. So the Mahu asked us to go and do ceremony and send our love. So that's what we do every Friday. We just leave love from our hearts into the stones. And I want to welcome you all. And if you want more information, I am Ka'imi. My number is 372-2082, and I'll send you more information about this. And I'd love to have you join us in Hālau.
Are there any questions from folks in the audience?
Hi, Nikki. Thinking about the oral tradition of Hawaii and the heiau, do you think there are bell stones or any bell stones in the Hawaiian tradition as well?
I'm sorry, do
Do
we,
you think any of the stones are tonal or bell stones that are resounding?
as we understand certain stones that have been obtained from the area of Kapūkakī, we understand that that area has produced stones that have that tonal quality. I do not know Kapaemahu stones to be possessing of that same quality, and I wasn't about to go and try to invoke that. let me try to speak to something greater. In my personal effort to establish a connection that I can maintain, unless it's something that will serve a specific need for what I need to do, I'm not going to try to go beyond that. We heard Rihanna touch upon this a while ago, the purpose, or in this case, repurposing, and this also has to do with what our other friends here have said. When you have restoration of stones, when you know the formula, or when you have to recalibrate that formula and repurpose what you're going to do, and then you're going to have new chants, perhaps new compositions to accompany this, to usher it in. Because why? Because the advocacy is for reclamation of space. For me, trying to ascertain whether they were told or not, it wasn't my immediate goal. My goal was to do what I would say some of the people set out to do in 1997. When these stones were reinstated to a place of great honor, when they were fenced in, when there were signs put up to tell that this is the name of the stones, I know that my purpose was simply to help tell this story. And as Rihanna mentioned in the chant, when we go look in the chants, some of the other texts surrounding the chants, you might get lucky, you might find the details, but in the chants, guaranteed, you're going to find what their purposes were. And that's kind of what helps to tell me where I'm going to go, or where I'm not necessarily going to go. So because I didn't find that as a characteristic attributed to them, I wasn't necessarily going to try to determine that, or the lack thereof. Yeah. Mahalo.
There's a question. We have one question actually for Lily. If you speak to the level of engineering that you practice, specifically from a Kanaka worldview, and how how that differs from, say, a general sort of architectural or engineering practice from the Western worldview. Just a little bit to really the quite brilliance of Kanaka engineering that you practice.
Yeah. The engineering part of what I do, how we acquire that knowledge is we got to dismantle heiau and we get to see how to build. And like I spoke earlier about the angles that we do, everyone's different. It's built along the hillside, like a kipapa wall. Rule of thumb is the height of the wall would be as wide as the base of the wall would be. We also take into account rainfall in an area. We have hydraulic pressure that weighs upon the wall and pushes it out. We also install what we call a weed pole, like crying wheat. Some people use pipes, use a channel in a rock to release some of that pressure. So the engineering part is something that we still are aware of every time that we get to work on a site. One of the keys that we use, which is really simple, we went down to Ace Hardware and we buy an angle finder and we put it on the wall and we take the average of what this thing. We use a lot of Enrique Kahuna maps. I don't know if you're familiar with Enrique Kahuna. He went throughout the islands and mapped a lot of our historical sites. But these sites did not have elevation on it or angles. So when we went to a site one of the pictures that I showed you of Keiki, those were one of the first heiau that Queen Kahumanu said, burn the idols and destroy the heiau. So whatever was left, sections of wall, is how we figured out the engineering of this thing. And I explained earlier, one of the walls that we used was a 28-degree on one side, 18 on the other side, which will give you compound miter corner. And this compound miter was facing northwest, and wide northwest. That's where we get our surf from. And this corner would split the wave. And the 28-degree angle would make the wave roll up the side of the heiau instead of pounding it. Then inside the heiau, inside this wall, which was approximately 24 feet high, there was 7 walls inside this thing, like a bondine or a door and window. So that's what keeps me excited about rebuilding our sets.
I have a question for Billy. When you're building the walls, you mentioned something about you're asking the stone where to be placed. Did I hear you right, or you said that you communicate with the stones?
Yeah, well, basically what we do is we rely on people like Pana. We do a couple lifting ceremony so we can work and be free and not be hurt. When the work's done, we put the couple back. And we also teach our men to ask the stones for permission before we work. Whether it makes sense to anybody, it makes sense to us. And your inner feeling is like, it's better to ask than not ask.
Oh, you know, I think that's a response to that as well.
Yes, Mahalo. I believe that one way to articulate this is to use the word relationship. When we have a relationship with who we are in the here and now, we Kanaka understand that we will always be connected to those who have gone before us. Sometimes it's to a great benefit, and then sometimes it can be to a detriment because we can be connected to all kind, every kind. But when we establish our relationship in this current space of existence, when Hinale Moana goes to some place and I offer an oli, I present myself and say, here, I am one voice and I'm coming for this purpose. I come with this particular heart. This is where I am. And this is what I look to. Acknowledging and recognizing that we have an ongoing relationship with our history, which I kind of also want to say that, you know, when Christianity first arrived and our chiefs then mandated that idols be burned and temples be destroyed, the impetus behind that was because we had foreign introduction of ideology and also foreign perspective of what is right and what is wrong. And in the modern day, when many of us can be sometimes criticized for, oh, why are you going to do that? Why are you going to build up again? You're not afraid and you're not supposed to do all this kind of stuff. But really, it's very simple. It's about us remaining connected. And that is key. Because when we are not connected, that's when we have a problem. When we remain connected to the history of Hawaii, as Kalembua said, to know the context of language, culture, and history of Hawaii is to know how we can maintain it. It is to harness the power of that knowledge that sustained our people here for centuries. Why would we not want to be of current relationship? So again, it's very key to have the person there that can be a voice. Even the most humble of voices, but to maintain that relationship. And of course, key to that is our language. Mahalo.
First of all, I just want to say thank you, all of So I'm native, but from the over on the East Coast, on the modern East Coast. And what happened to us, so, the word is no word, over here, you're able to stop because all our language is wiped out. And all our land is taken. And right now, the White House is on our land. All the homes and the Smithsonian are on our and our burial grounds where my ancestors are was made into a park. And we had to get permission to go. And my father always taught me that the earth is your mother, and everything we have comes from earth. And my uncle said that the earth doesn't belong to us, we belong to the land, and that we would each put on a certain place to take care of that part of the earth. So, we don't have the Pōhaku like me, but we use rocks in ceremonies, and we will know that they're spirits, and you can call them with song, and they contact water and song, and so I look at your Pōhakus and how big they are. And that's a reflection of your ancestors. They're big. And I wonder, I guess my question is, how do you walk in the two worlds and still find peace inside?
You're asking anyone of us particularly?
Anyone?
I'll say that's where it goes back to education. Somebody's going on. Education, if you answer that question, it's that education in the world today is the only proactive way to make any form of society redressing. And ultimately, it all goes back to the peace we find is through advocacy. The peace we find is through work. And I remember there's a quote from Sitting Bull that really resonated with me that as he was in prison, he kept chanting and he kept dancing and he kept laughing. And somebody asked him, why do you keep doing that? And he said, because that's Mahota. That's him. That if he were to stop laughing, and if he was to stop dancing, and if he was to stop singing and praying his prayers, then he would cease to exist as a member of his people. And so for me, when we go into educational spaces to try to help to rebuild, whether it's rebuilding a sacred space or rebuilding a sacred spirit of a child or an audience, the message is the medicine. Being able to share the medicine with the children, and it doesn't have to be in their own space, but that's the point. Because if I don't actively pursue change, then that's where everything situates, I think, internally and shows up as, psychologically. And I mean, I'm going to say that societal, so you said the trauma, it's easy to see when it takes place in these, communities that have been oppressed through ideological shifts such as we've had. And it comes through disease, it comes through religion, it comes through politics, it comes through. And so because it took place there, that you actually look, if you care about data, if you care, you can look around the world and you can see commonalities that took place there. Where Marcus' destiny was taken, these societal results occurred. And they happen to, in the same way, in similar situations. So the medicine is easy, it's just societal redress. it's easy. But when it's not easy, when the stories that we live by are really entrenched deeply in us, and individualism was taught really young, and so young that you can't identify it within you, and then you don't have the tools necessary to strip it from your soul. And so this is I don't think it's complex, but the peace comes from action.
And if I might add to the answer, what you do have versus what you don't have. Personally, I don't know what I do. But in Hawaii, there are so many spaces and places that are no longer under control of us Kanaka, and it is now relegated to the control of the United States and Americans who don't really care about Kanaka. But what you do have is your ability to perpetuate the understandings and internally have that relationship. I learned a great lesson from speaking several times now with Mehana in one of the hats that we have to wear. And we speak to American audiences. And what I learned from her, we started off with me leading and then she coming in. And then the last couple of times, she led and then I listened. It was the best thing that I could ever do. Because Nana has the ability to balance herself in a different way, which I didn't learn yet. So the first part of my answer is, you don't always have to be the only one. Because when I'm in that space, sometimes I feel like I'm the only one. And then the weight of then the weight of all the indignities and the disrespect and all of the woulda, coulda, shoulda, but didn't, then they feel like they are upon me, you, the individual. But he just mentioned, that's what we were taught. Foreign culture taught us to be individual. We come from a culture of collectivism, where the cumulative is dominant, but you have the ability to teach. And when you teach, how you teach the next generation to embrace this is going to be key. If you teach from a place of being internally, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually defeated, then. But if you don't come from that place, you may have a chance. So if you notice, I choose my words very carefully. For me, this is my mainland. Hawaii is my mainland. I acknowledge no other. I am Kanaka. This is my mainland. This is my home. When I travel to your land, I go to America. I go to Great Turtle Island. Yes? Great Turtle Island. We must acknowledge this. But that comes from taking a long time to find my own place of balance. And so, that's the second part of my answer to you, to add to what he said, is that how you tell them, if you come from that place of implementing you without shouldering it to others who cannot shoulder it, and if you come from that place of being defeated, then you don't have much but. If in your voice you give hope to the next generation, there can be a way.
Thank you. We have another question back here.
Question. What is the similarities or differences between monument and wahi pana?
this is the consensus of the group up here. I'm just a spokesperson. Language, it's English, Hawaiian. Yeah, we can, I think, utilize the word monument if it was to have to speak about wahi pana, to our English audience, possibly, right, to be able to do that. So I think what you're trying to ask if there's a hierarchy of space and terms that go with that hierarchy. You kind of talk about that, Whitney, or just a simple difference? If you think that there's a difference between those two words and how they're kind of normally seen today. One, wahi pana as kind of storing places, sacred, or, yeah, I think monuments, is just an English word that has those same kind of characteristics too.
What's in a word? Ina ʻōlelo kuno o ia'u kou. I ko kā o ʻōlelo ma kuahine. A e ʻōlelo a kuno o au, o ohana I keia po ʻōlelo o wahi pana. E wahi pana. E wahi po āna. E wahi hano hano. E wahi kapūkakī. E wahi noa paha. A ino kuno ho I keia po ʻōlelo o wahi pana. Nui ke malaina. A ale kono ho e ho vepe e a oe. Ina ʻōlelo kuno o I a oe, a hele kuno oe. O ke lawa he kule oe, pana no oe. Mapopo ni a oe kone e hanai. Ya ka ko Hawaiʻi mapopo. To an English speaker, we have to select the words. Whether we would necessarily attribute that particular word in all contexts when referring to it, maybe not. But if I'm speaking to a group of English-speaking people and I want to convey my sentiments about this place, I just might utilize that word, monument. So remember the example that I used earlier, Rushmore, wherever that is. Yeah, because, well, to me, it's offensive to me. Rushmore is offensive to me because that took a sacred place to our brothers and sisters of their land, and that literally said, bing, now here it is, now you pay homage to these foreigners, and their faces forever etched into that mountainside out there. We know how we would feel as Kanaka, and we experience it all the time, on the daily, when we have to fight for every last thing that we consider for world of the Kanaka. We should have a say over what gets done. Mauna Kea or any other place. But how do we convey that to someone who does not speak our language? We utilize the terminology that is within that language to convey our sentiments and our level of profound and utter respect. So to an English speaker, when you say monument, they'll go, oh, monument, oh. And then they're going to want to know more. So, like when I use the word vestige, because I do my best to call out my knowledge of the colonizer language that, I'm sorry, we went to the same school. I know exactly what I was taught. I know exactly why I used that word. Right? So it's up to us as Kanaka to be exceptionally clever in how we articulate ourselves, because what's in a word? Everything. Iko ʻōlelo no keola, iko ʻōlelo no kamake.
Thank you. There's a question in the back, and then I have a question as well, but maybe I'll ask it again.
Hi, I was just wondering, we are students, and besides being respectful and paying respects, are there ways that we could be involved in safeguarding and protecting and preserving the stones? Is it just by further educating ourselves, or is there a way we can volunteer in some sort of way to help kind of integrate themselves into the community?
I think, and I'll get to that. So I think it's poignant as a group of students, because in the idea, or the world maybe of a student, that it's almost like it's your right. I'm just saying not yours, but the student's right to whatever knowledge I pay for or purchase. And I say that because as we walk through the path of learning, that there are many different ways to learn. And it's not always about this direct responsibility to maybe any sacred stone or sacred place, because as students, that societal shift, this deconstruction maybe, or the deep dive into your own ideology is the work. As a student, because I had this conversation with an astronomy student. Well, what about all this new knowledge? And I was like, I understand, but as you descend into the depth of where that ideology comes from, it prioritizes new knowledge, your knowledge, the astronomy student, over an entire way of being, an entire people. And when you situate it that way, I'd say for me, the first stage, hopefully with the youth that you're hearing, is that you have a choice to make, ideologically speaking. Because we could just leave here and move on and just keep going, and knowledge is more important than people. And we could keep doing that. Because we weren't taught that way, in that critical period, as long as possible development, when you're really young, you're not taught these things. In that developmental stage that makes it permanent in you, you're fighting against something that you were taught. I would say, as a student, fight against that. Deconstruct it, dismantle it, and figure out, for the astronomy student, before we look 13 billion years into the past, to the potential of a Big Bang, what are the characteristic traits of my behaviors that I enact on a daily basis that is leading us into a brick wall until a sixth extinction worldwide? Because I think that's kind of important. But the ideology of a student, the worldview of a student is that I'm a student, I'm walking through this knowledge, and my knowledge is existentially really important to me, my career, and where I'm going. The brick wall is racing towards us. I don't want to sound like a prepper or a doomsday, but what I'm going to tell you, Hawaii, if you study, has been at moments in our recent history the extinction capital of the world. And those birds are our ancestors. Those bugs, those plants are our ancestors. And in our worldview, you understand where I'm going. So I would say you don't necessarily have to save stones, but I think you have to do the internal psychological work to dismantle the ideology that created the mess we're in. Does that make sense? I hope it does.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to close this conversation tonight. Thank you all. Thank you to our speakers, Mehana, Billy Fields, Kumokina, and Kalekua crew. Please, everyone, let's show them our thanks and gratitude for